philosophy is one of the oldest discipline in the world and इसी का एक part है political philosophy. This is under the ambit of philosophy only. In fact, if you know about it, even your study of natural sciences, physics, started as a offshoot of philosophy only. ठीक है? Aristotle was a physicist in somewhat sense. He gave the first theory of gravity, if that makes any sense. But anyhow, we have to be bothered about only political science and political philosophy. So understand, Aristotle, your father of political science, and Plato, your father of political philosophy. Socrates, father of philosophy. If you know which constitutes which part, you obviously know. These are your power philosophers. First, second, third. This is simple. Then we have to understand the times. So if we go by times, you have to understand when we are talking about ancient Greece. This was one of the prominent time when the field of political science was studied अच्छे से. And here the major, let's say, tool which you use to understand the field of politics, the phenomena of politics, the events of politics, the tools that you were using was philosophy. Then we come to the medieval times and we will see that how religion will overshadow your philosophy. Philosophy also is something मनगढ़ंत, but let's say that you have said कि भैया ये वाला मनगढ़ंत is better and you are going to understand everything from the ambit of religion only. So much so that you are not even ready to acknowledge that sun is at center and earth revolves around sun, because according to your religion, because of your framework, earth is at center and sun revolves around the earth. So what is the issue? You do not want to get challenged. No challenge. You will try your best to remove any authority challenging your notions, your beliefs. And then we will see with the coming of Machiavelli, who will establish that politics is one sphere, and when we talk about religion, it is completely different sphere. In fact, with religion itself, he will divide not just politics and religion, but politics and ethics, which were together from the beginning itself. ठीक है? Even here, politics were with ethics. Machiavelli will bifurcate the two. Then we will see from Machiavelli to the time till, let's say, world wars. All of this politics or political science or political philosophy will be developed only in one area, that is Europe. Europe will be the place where all of this science will be developed. All of your philosophers and thinkers, let's say your Mill or let's say Locke or let's say Hobbes, where do they belong to? Europe only. But understand, Europe is the place which was at ancient times known as Rome. When I talk about Rome, you have to understand Rome is nothing but future of Greece. Greece itself became Roman culture. So you have to understand they will also emphasize a lot upon philosophy, and it becomes very hard to distinguish properly philosophy. When you are using philosophy as a tool, it becomes very hard to totally bifurcate politics and ethics. It becomes sometimes difficult. But we will see that after the World War, obviously the center of the world will not be your Britain or your France. It will become what? It will center will become United States of America. And so will be the center of future developments. Future development in the field of political science. And what is the main, let's say, export of United States of America except culture, technology, right? Internet is provided by USA for free. GPS by USA for free. So understand technology. So they will try to make this political science a study that is as same as the study of your natural sciences. You will want to create political science a field of pure science. Up till now, what was the issue? We were confused. Machiavelli was the first person to say that bhai, politics is an art. It is an art. You cannot learn politics. It is an art. It is a craft. ठीक है? Political science becomes your state craft. Craft, art and craft. You know, right? In school, you do this art and craft. You have to practice your hand. You have to make your practical experiences included. Till now, it was just art about philosophy. In fact, if we go to ancient times in West, your state was as same as society because society was very small. Here, societies are very similar also because all are just offshoots of Roman Empire. Whether you go to France or Germany or Britain, everywhere marriage is same. You do, I do. May you kiss the bride. Same culture, Roman culture. Kiss is a Roman phenomena. Roman phenomena. Even though India is the lands of the Kama Sutras, but still, Roman phenomena is kiss. And kiss showed hierarchy of how much equal you are. Let's say if two persons are equal, they might kiss on the forehead or lips. If, but let's say you are going to meet the Pope, so you are not equal, he's superior to you, you have to kiss his feet. In fact, if you have to seal a deal, so a letter will be given to you, and it is not that you will be literate or you will know how to read and understand and sign. So it is expected there will be a sign there, cross sign, and you have to kiss it there, the letter. It means the deal has been sealed. Later on, the sealing the deal was changed with handshake gestures. Anyhow, this is not relevant, but the issue that I'm asking you to understand is Roman culture is whole of Europe. ठीक है? So after World War, we will see United States to become the center of the developments in the field of political science. Obviously, because USA is just a empty land. It is not like people are there. Europe people will move there. Now think about what kind of person would be who is leaving his land in Europe to move to a new and very far away land in United States, you will have to think very futuristic. You have to be very, very sure of what you are doing. Now, I'm not saying that here Italians coming and starting the culture of mafioso. Okay, we are not talking about the movie Godfather here. What we are trying to talk about, we're trying to show, or we are trying to understand the shift, that how come it is becoming pure science. And because we have to deal with that, so we will start with our approaches. Approaches to political science. Now understand, with every thinker and with every justification that we call, in cute words we call justifications theory, we have to understand how is the originating principle based for any theory. It could be philosophical in nature, as we said that by ancient Greece में it was the most prominent way. What was Plato doing? Plato was just sitting and just thinking about stuff. That is philosophical. He was talking about not just what is, he was talking about what ought to be. सपने की दुनिया. अब obviously you have to be highly philosophical to talk about that. Then we saw Karl Marx, Hegel, and what method they were using? Historical, right? Similarly, we see when we saw Machiavelli, Machiavelli also used historical methods, but he also emphasized on observation, empirical. Wasn't Aristotle also talking about observation? Because he was also talking about what is. So we can say that by Aristotle was the golden mean of Plato and Machiavelli. He was also talking about what ought to be as well as what is. So historical method plus empirical method, if you divide it by 2, you get Aristotle. Empirical means what? Understand? Empirical is nothing very tough word for very easy word. It is basically observation. And then there is another method where you do comparison. Who did that? Aristotle, obviously. What is the method? Legal institutional. What do you do here? You take up a institution, let's say the institution of family. Now you talk about it, decode it, you compare it with other societies, and you get a good picture. Okay, bhai, what is going on? What is requirement? What is the requirement here? That you have to first understand lot of culture and society, how their institutions are managed. Then take the golden wheel. Let's say when we say that Constituent Assembly of India made our constitution, hundred of times I have told you in polity that, or maybe not told you, but you should know this, that our constitution has been taken up from lot of constitution in the world. So it is a kind of legal institutional method that we took as an approach towards our constitutional development. But at the same time, you have to understand these are all separate fields, and this field will be developed fully later on after World War II. Why? After World War II, it will be developed fully because understand, after World War II, decolonization will happen. Decolonization will happen. It means that new states are coming to form. I told you, first stage of state formation was Treaty of Westphalia. Here, states were formed, nation states, but these states were very, very homogeneous in nature. French people living in France, Britain, British, most of those also having common roots, Roman roots. Okay? So most of the tradition and society and institution and culture and the hierarchy are all the same here. But when we see the establishment of new kinds of nation states after the World War II, let's say South Africa and India and Pakistan and Bangladesh, let's say le lo East Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, you have to understand that each of these have a totally different kind of civilizational hierarchy inside. Meanwhile, they have adopted a system and institutional approach of somebody else, that is, their colonial masters. And surely we will see that most of these, in fact, will turn communist. Why communist? Because of the social and cultural roots there. You have to understand they are very much in poverty, they are poverty stricken, huge burden over resources. We see a slight exception with India, but apart from that, we do not see any of the Western culture getting completely bound or stick in the getting stuck in the mind of the people and the hearts of the people. We do not see that. That is why we see that in Pakistan we get sometimes democracy and then sometime military will take over, then sometime democracy, then sometime military will take over. What about the situation in the Bangladesh also the same situation. If you talk about the Nepal, I think 2 or 3 times I have heard that they are creating the constitution. Each time then somebody will come and become the king and then they will start making the constitution. So the society is not that very much democratic, and at the same time the West will try to show that why the society is not democratic, and that is why it is not in the best interest to implement democracy there. But at the same time, USA, see, we see this that USA comes to Afghanistan and installs a regime. But Afghanistan is also not a place where the society is very, very democratic. Unless you can call Saudi Arabia also democratic society. No, it is not. That is why one person is able to rule, and you have to support that person, and you give the theory of your ideologies and of history and of ideologies, etc. You talk about clash of civilizations. You talk about clash of civilizations. You give a good justification why you are supporting dictatorship regimes in these Middle Eastern countries, whereas you talk about so much about your liberal philosophies and liberal values and how superior they are from the rest of the world. So understand everything is just about you. How come it be? So this is nothing but comparative politics. Comparative politics, legal institutional method. So when I do this, your part A of paper 2 will be over. This area. So it becomes an entire field in itself. Now obviously it is a very recent, very very new, very very recent development, because after World War II only we are talking about it, and in that also we have to understand why. Because new kind of states are getting formed, new kind of states, new kind of nation states after World War II, after decolonization, and which means they are not coming from homogeneous Roman Catholic roots. कोई हिंदू नेशन है, somebody is a Buddhist nation, तिब्बत ले लो अजीब ही है, चाइना if you talk about Han dynasty, very very different they are. And that makes what important? That makes important not just to study constitution, because what is constitution if you think about it? Constitution is just a book talking about the various institutions that are supposed to be. Let's suppose election commission, it is in the constitution. What about UPSC? It is in the constitution. What about, let's say, president? It is an institution, it is in the constitution. Vice president is an institution, it is in the constitution. If you talk about CAG, what is that? It is an institution in the constitution. Fundamental rights, the whole architecture of fundamental rights and the Supreme Court and how you can approach the Supreme Court to enforce your fundamental rights is an institution itself established in the constitution. So it made sense before World War II to just rely upon comparing constitutions when we are comparing two states, because constitution is enough to tell about most of the features of the society, how it is supposed to be governed. But it is not supposed to be when we are talking about India. भैया India के अंदर there are lots of India. There is a modern India, then there is a rural India, then there is a भैया religious India, medieval time India. ठीक है, all of these गौ रक्षक्स. In fact, sometimes what happens is that these religious people can become the ruler. Gau Rakshak family becomes the ruler. So anything is possible here. The modern India is not even at all bothered about what goes on in India. They are happy with their cars, they are happy with their bungalows, they are happy with their business. Sometimes they do charity to these religious institutions and they are happy with it. Religion people take care of them. We know all of this, no point going into it all. See, try to create a framework in your mind. Okay, what you are studying, start creating a framework. You have to become a, you have to come in a position when you can call yourself a little bit of, let's say, amateur political analyst. I'm not saying expert, I'm saying amateur. At least amateur, you should be in a position to see कि भाई what is all going on, and you should be very much aware कि हाँ भाई this is the political approach. Now I will not waste much time and will try to destroy some of the areas. First, I want to talk about philosophical approach. Now, understand philosophical approach when I talk about, you just write it down in your notes or wherever. Normative. Don't get confused in lot of words. There are a lot of words, but you have to understand when I talk about philosophical, I am talking about normative only most of the time. Okay. And when I'm talking about normative, what I'm basically talking about is theory of knowledge. ठीक है. So just think about theory of knowledge, how it is. Socrates and Rutsky, buck buck. That's it. Now understand, what tool do you use in philosophical approaches? Tools can be dialectics. Make sense? What is dialectics? Nothing but debate. So why this tough word for debate? This is just a language game. Okay, they try to confuse you. So let's try to decode everything so that it becomes very very easy for us. So in philosophical sense, we dealt with idealism. Idealism most probably most sufficiently lives under the ambit of philosophical approaches only. This is one of the, let's say, theory and let's say perspective. See, something is called perspective, something is called analytical tool, understand, and something is called approaches. How are they all different? Understand, when I talk about analytical tool, I'm talking about what various analytical tool I have. Let's say if I have to talk about India right now, so what analytical tool I can use? I can use the analytical tool of, let's say, Marxism, Marxist approach. So I will be talking about material, socio-physical, socio-economical issues, material nature. I will try to understand. I will try to understand how production is happening, how is resource being distributed. I will talk about this. This is my angle. This is my perspective. Perspective is talking about analytical tool, how I'm visualizing anything. So here my issues will come out to be different, my solutions will come out to be different. But let's say if I start taking a new analytical tool, that is, let's say, feminism, then obviously my scope will change. I will see how, let's say, women are at a disadvantage. What solution I can give? How come women are at a disadvantage? What is causing this issues? Let's say I am both. I am Marxist as well as feminism. So I can use Marxism. I will see how women are not given equitable share of resources, how women are not getting property rights, how they are not getting enough wealth allocation. I hope you are getting it. If I start talking of taking a liberal route, then I have to see, okay, how come persons liberty can be increased, that is state intervention should be less and less. That is, I do not care about the poor people of the India. I do not want to. But let's say I take, because in liberalism also there are a lot of angles that I can use. So let's say if I'm talking about welfare model, so ठीक है, you help person become more liberal, more self sufficient, etc, but at the same time help those who are at a disadvantage, reservation policy, etc. Make sense? These are analytical tools. Okay, now is Marxism an ideology? Yes, it is an ideology also. Is feminism an ideology? It is an ideology also. But when I'm talking about analytical tool, it is different thing. Romila Thapar, in her book of ancient India, you understand that she comes from a field which is Marxist. So when she talks about ancient history, she takes a perspective of material, how resources were given, how she will talk about handicraft peoples, handicraft of India. She will talk about how various businesses were getting dismantled because of the coming of British goods, British factory produced goods. In fact, they were very cheap. ठीक है? How the culture was manipulated so that they will buy this. So they will put photos of gods and devis over the soap bar. If this is soap, I will put Lakshmi Mata with the fool and everything. Now people are buying this soap and agarbatti. ठीक है? So you have to take care in mind. Coming back to our first approach, philosophical approach. So obviously, when I'm talking about philosophical approach, it cannot be completed without talking about Socrates and Plato. They were the ones who started the regime. Now, what were they majorly talking about was purpose. Well, not both, but let's say idea, purpose of state. So state was it, everything was near, revolving near or around state only. What should be the ideal state? Why should it continue? It comes into existence for this, it continues for this, alana falana. It is all about state. So state ke itna nearby you can be, but you are till here only. You are political science. After there, you could be completely different thing. ठीक है? So central role was state. Philosophical approach. Now obviously this is one of the oldest approach, and there are some things in the world which only philosophy can deal with better. Let's say when we talk about idea of justice, so understand there is no physical thing, this justice. Or when we talk about idea of liberty, भैया this is not a physical thing, कोई पेड़ पौधा है नहीं, पत्थर है नहीं, it is a liberty. You have to talk in philosophical context. Then when we talk about, let's say, ethics, Immanuel Kant, you understand ethics is something that is purely philosophical in nature. Even your equality, ठीक है, at least state का you see some institution, कि चलो you can see parliament, or you can see some kind of prime minister who you can see कि भाई this is a physical person, he is my prime minister Modi. But how do you see ethics, how do you see liberty, how do you see justice? So you have to make sure कि भैया there is a good debate over it and everybody is happy with it, and it makes sense कि भाई philosophy is the approach. But now you understand, see, you just have to do three things only in any case. What is it? It's major criticism, relevance, khatam. Any topic you can dismantle into these three things. So what is we have to do now? We have to understand criticism. Now who will give criticism to behavioralism? Oh sorry, philosophical approach. So behavioralists. Now they are in criticism. They will give criticism. Why will they give criticism? Because they will say कि भाई, see, पहले understand what is behavioralist. So just understand, for your peace of mind, behavioralists are just science wale people. Science wale, khatam. They are talking about science, science, science. ठीक है. Now understand, in the whole chart I told you, when will science develop? USA में जब होगा. When will USA come? After World War. So understand, behavioralist, their agenda is that they want to make political science, as simple as that. Not art, not craft, but pure science. Pure science. Now, how do you make something pure science? By changing your methodology. So, what do? You include quantitative measures. Quantitative, what is that? Maths, statistics, etc. You include, you become behavioralist. Why this word behavior? Because I am not going to think about कि भाई what is this or what is that. I am going to observe. I am going to observe behavior of human, behavior of men, behavior of society in different places, in different regions. I will make sure behavior of anything. I will observe. Now I told you that empirical approach is also based upon observation. But understand, it is just based on observation. I am observing and I am giving up a theory. Here, with observation, I am also giving quantitative tools. Okay. Now, I will take behavioralist as a wait. So, behavioralist, if you think about it, in the words of Lord Bryce, we need facts, facts, facts. Just like Vidya Balance, I am entertainment, entertainment, entertainment. Lord Bryce says we need facts, facts, facts. हमें नहीं सुनना भैया फिलोसोफर किंग. वी डू नॉट नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड. गिव अस फैक्ट्स कि भाई नाजी में हिटलर ने ये किया, मुसोलिनी ने ये किया, लेनिन ने ये किया. दीज आर द थिंग्स दैट दे डू. Hence, we can say कि authoritarian regime do this, do something like this, not this कि एक होगा आदमी 60 साल तक पढ़ेगा, उसको बनाएंगे हम राजा, philosopher king. We do not need that. We require facts, facts, facts. In fact, they say that philosophical theories are nothing but armchair theories. Armchair theories. Now, what are armchairs? Armchair are those जो मिस्टर बजाज कसौटी जिंदगी में जिस पे बैठता था. Some chair. Now it will go sideways like this and that, this and that, this and that. Sitting over it with a glass of whiskey in your hand and cigar in one hand, and you are talking about. But भाई दुनिया तो बहुत गलत है, right? So armchair theories and so philosophical. So you know about it. When I'm saying something is armchair theories, I'm saying that theories are biased. जैसा जिसका mood है, with that he's going forward with it, and it has no continuum with reality. Reality is different, ideas are different, they have no continuum among it. So understand, when we talk about Immanuel Kant, or let's say justice, John Rawls justice, so understand these are normative issues. So obviously the approach was philosophical. So they will be in favor of it. So what do? फेवर वाले कुछ लिख दो. प्लेटो, सॉक्रेटिस, जॉन रॉल्स, कांट लिख दो. दैट्स इट. ये हो गए favor. Then let's say you talk about Lord Bryce or give some kind of armchair, no relation with reality. What is this? Criticism. Then what you do? Conclude. That's it. What is the conclusion? कि भैया politics is too complex, very complex. So the approach, when you are selecting the approach, it will depend upon the objective of your research. कि भैया what do you want to do? Let's say कि you are a political scholar living in United States of America at a time of Cold War. You know that communist ke you are against. So obviously, what should be the approach? So understand what is your objective. Your objective is to make sure कि भैया West is the best. West is the best. This is your objective. This is your goal. Now to get this goal, to achieve this goal, what tool you should use? You understand yourself what should be the tool you should be use. You can compare policies of United States or policies of the West with the policies of the East, and you can show कि भैया see here more growth, more profit, more money, here people poor, therefore we are winning. Hey, simple. Or you can say कि भाई चलो philosophical terms में चले जाते हैं. Understand, when you go into philosophical approach, obviously communist will make more sense, and it will see whether you are right or wrong, or whether this is right or wrong. We all can agree upon one thing, that socialism and communism is very much attractive, and especially when you are a poor person. For a poor person, think about it, that everything will be taken care of the state. Everything will be taken care of by the state. Food, water, security, jobs, everything will be given up by the state. How beautiful it sounds. So obviously, if you will use philosophical approach at this time, if you are this person here at the time of Cold War, philosophical approach if you take, you will bhaiya lose. So better ki use some kind of different approach, maybe some scientific approach, so that you can calculate कि भैया this is the net GDP of West, this is the net GDP of the East. See, we won. This is better. सही बात है. When you understand, when you can't change the girl, when you can't change the girl, change the girl. जिसको ये चीज़ समझ में आ जाएगी, उसको ये सारा समझ में आ जाएगा. As simple as that. First you try to make sure कि भाई ठीक है, are you actually winning? Is it under your control? If you can't change using your, let's say, same method, if let's say you use philosophical method and I am using philosophical approach, and with that approach I am not coming to a conclusion which suits me, better to change the whole approach. As simple as that. If you can't change the girl, this girl is doing very chick, just change the girl, new girl. As simple as that. Now obviously this is not to be written anywhere. ठीक है, कहीं आंसर में लिख के आ रहे हो, ये ऐसी फन में समझा रहा हूँ. Now understand, second, historical approach. So again, why same thing. What is historical approach? Okay, so this is also one of the oldest approaches in the world, and it is also very simple and very common sense based. So in the terms, in the words of scholars, we can say if history is root, politics is shoot. Now what is politics? Shoot is, this is land and this is pehla patta. So this tree is going to grow from roots only. History is roots. This is history. And politics is the visible. History तो हो गई पहले past में. It is not visible now. What is visible now is politics, because current politics is just a continuity of history, or you can say, or you can say history is past politics, and your politics is present history. It makes sense. What, oh, let's say constitutional amendment bill is coming, this will go down under history. This is politics today, but it will become history tomorrow. Brexit, it is politics today, but it will become history tomorrow. Make sense? And when you are reading about history, spectrum uthao, what you are studying, nothing but past politics, divide and rule policy of Britishers. But at that time, understand, it was politics. At that time, it was politics. Now it is history for us. For them, it was politics, giving communal electorate, etc., etc., 1919, 1909, bifurcating Bengal, all of this. Okay, so now international relations and the field of international relation is also very, very new. Although historical approach and your philosophical approaches are the oldest, but international relation is very, very new. It makes sense because bhaiya, state itself, nation state itself are very, very new. Now do not say कि भाई Treaty of Westphalia. At that time also nation states were there, but that time it was not international relation as we see today. At that time the major focus was on upon only balance of power. That's it. You sign एक दो treaty इधर एक दो treaty उधर, that's it. That was your traditional politics, traditional international politics, which was very much nothing but diplomatic politics. I told you in IR, I think diplomatic missions started because there was a need to rehabilitate your nobles, your princes, etc. Why? Because भैया जितनी luxury you were having, now same luxury capitalists are having. So how do you make sure कि भाई you look very much apart from the class? So you give them some tasks. Say भाई go to the Spain and be the ambassador of Britain for Spain. Go to become an high commissioner for Britain in China, etc. Make sure, ठीक है, वाइस रॉ बना के भेज दो, गवर्नर जनरल बना के भेज दो. You have to rehabilitate them, otherwise they will become revolutionary class. They will gather army, come together, kill you. Who are you? Let's say king of England. Make sense? Coming back to historical approach, so we see कि भाई Machiavelli was the first person, one of the first person to think कि भाई history is the better source, better guide. He told this thing in his book The Prince, that history is the better guide for the prince rather than philosophy. Now he also favored empirical method, so I will talk about it when I do empirical approach. And when we think about the line, every thinker is a child of his times, who gave this? Teacher of Nehru, Lasky. ठीक है? Now understand, what does this mean? So it is not enough to understand any text. You have to also understand context. You are reading history, it does not mean that you can just copy paste that history here. Sure, history repeats. You can learn from history and make sure those uh, results do not occur. it does not repeat. You can take clue from it. If you talk about nuclear doctrines, we know that it will be a total all out war. So you have learned from history only, right? That भैया वर्ल्ड वॉर वन हो गया, वर्ल्ड वॉर टू हो गया. So you know कि how far you can take fights if एक जैसे same power candidates start fighting, it will just devastate the whole world. And with now nuclear technology, nuclear bombs, you can just annihilate the whole world. So this is, both parties are understanding from history only, from the study of history. So history is a good source, it makes sense. Let's try to understand the criticism. See, when you read history, understand, you are reading some kind of text, and then you are doing what, you are interpreting it. You are giving us an interpretation कि भैया this happened and this is why this is currently going on. Why are people stupid? क्योंकि भैया ऐसे ही है इंडिया में तो लोग, culture is stupid. Makes sense. When we did last class, Edward said, he did not say anything. This is his name, Edward said. What did he told about? He showed us an application. Did he or did he not? He showed us an application of Lyotard's philosophy, Orientalism. He showed us how Orientalism, the study of Orient, that is East, was to show us that our history has dictated that bhai West is the supreme one and East is the barbaric one, and West can only make sure कि भैया East becomes modern, right? What was the advantage? They were using history to make West seem superior. It helped them to rule us easily. Make sense? So, what will be the major criticism? Understand? Very logically, you think about it. That your interpretation could be politicized. Politicized. The chances of politicized interpretation is very much. In fact, what you can do is sometimes take, let's say, on same day, Unnao case happened. I know this from personal experience because I follow a lot of people, very stupid people, in fact. So, one person from Unnao, same day that Unnao case happened, that the girl was burned, same day in Hyderabad, police assassinated four men in similar case. Same day it is happening, but yet you are posting on social media that bhaiya police has failed women of India, police has failed, police should die, anti police, anti India. ठीक है, I am not that BJP fellow, but you have to understand भैया police has no control. Police follows the order of the representatives that you choose and you elect. I am not even sure कि भैया you have even voted ever, but you are very eager to show in social media, see how much I am empowered. Same day I'm talking about. So what you are doing is selectively taking some incident to favor your stance. Why are you not showing this also? Makes no sense, right? So understand, another criticism is that you can selectively use, selective use of history. Bad parts दिखा दो बस सारे. When we talk about Machiavelli, he does that. He only talks about power politics, and he only uses the references in history where, let's say, one country annexed another country when another country was weak. But what about when two countries helped each other together and established a coexistence regime? Why can't we favor that? So with that said, even when we studied Marx, we know that he also gave a theory for explaining movement of history, and he has been criticized having committed the guilt of historicism. Now it is not much different from what Machiavelli did. Machiavelli also used selective use of history for what? For making his case seem very much valid. Same thing Marx did. He also used history selectively to forward his ideological purposes, to forward his ideology. As simple as that. Same Hegel. Hegel also. ठीक है, you are giving history idealist version of history की movement. Why? So that you can show कि भाई see, state is the best, state is the march of God on earth. Okay, now conclusion. Obviously politics is very complex. Politics is very complex, and we should make sure we should choose our approach. What approach we have to choose? This is the box of approach. Which approach you have to choose will depend upon what are the objectives. What are the objectives of my political research? As simple as that. Make sense? So with that said, we will move forward with empirical. Empirical approach. Now as I told you, you have to just understand empirical is observation. So understand, when we talk about the world of reality and the world of ideas, when we talk about God, can you see God? No. Can you observe God? No. When you can't observe it with your eyes or anything, what do I say? कि भैया, you have to have the tool of reason. You use your reason to understand God. If you don't have reason, तो भैया you will not understand God. तो unfortunately you will have to say कि which man, what kind of man will say कि भैया I am having no reason. तुम बोलोगे क्या कि you have no reason? No. So you will say हाँ हाँ हाँ, सही बात, God है, God है. That's it. Making fool. तो काफ़ी ज़्यादा criticize कर सकते हो with empirical approach. You can. What is this? Philosophical approach. Now understand, Machiavelli was one of the first person to talk about empirical approach. He was also the first person to talk about your historical approach. He took both together because history is also about observation in a way. Observation plus interpretation. History. Empirical is observing, and you can relate the two. It makes sense. Why I'm saying कि भैया Machiavelli, didn't Aristotle also focused on what is? And Machiavelli also, the prince should be focused on things as they are, not how they should be. ठीक है? The profession of politics, when we discussed when Machiavelli, we are talking about this only, so you know what it is. Aristotle, when giving, let's say, theory of forms, being and becoming, there is a relationship between the two. Being and becoming. Now becoming is not in your hand, is it? You will get to know whether you become a DM or not. But being is in your hand, preparation is in your hand. Now understand, idea and matter. This is not properly in your hand. This is in your hand. Focus on this. Focus on material. You are only focused about what about that book and what about this book. Focus on what book you have in front of you. Do this now first. then worry about this ever if you get the time. What about this? Should there is this one, this Harshika in Siddha batch asking for, so suggest me a book for, what was it, Supreme Court judgments. Are bhaiya, is it in the syllabus? Is it in the syllabus, Supreme Court judgments? And you need an entire book for it, and you have already given one exam, so it is better कि भैया focus and revise. Why worry about this? Same most of you asking ये book है अच्छी, वो book है, एक कर लो कोई भी, any book, content is same. ठीक है, always worried about idea, not worried about matter. This is your empirical approach. Now let's make a very sharp distinction between the two, your idea and matter, or let's say philosophy or empirical. Here you are talking about just ideas, here you will emphasize upon facts. Give me facts, facts, facts. Now understand here, obviously because you cannot observe God or idea, God is what, the supreme idea. So what is your tool to understand? What is your method to understand? Method is reason, method is logic. Here how do you observe? Directly, observation, direct observation. Here understand, you're talking about ought to be, here you're talking about what is. What do you call about what is? Descriptive. Ought to be is suggestive. I am suggesting कि philosopher king should rule. I am describing how. Let's say if I am Mearsheimer, I will tell you कि how and why USA is the at the best location. It is surrounded by water this side, surrounded by water this side, snow this side, and नीचे है एक poor country Mexico. That's it. Nobody can attack me ever. Obviously, this was not true because in 2001, first attack on USA's territory happened. 9/11 I'm talking about. So in philosophy we will talk about whether this is right. ऐसा करना चाहिए क्या या वैसा करना चाहिए क्या, right or wrong. You talk about justice, you talk about equality, you will ask these questions only. But when I'm talking about empirical approach, I will try to understand whether this is true or whether this is false. Can anyone attack USA? Has it occurred before? Why has it not occurred? Because it is surrounded by water here, snow above, and very poor country, Mexico near. ठीक है, so only two borders I have to protect, two borders, one and two. And ये है very very good friend of me, Canada, छोटा भाई. ये very very poor, can't do anything. इंडिया ये अगर ले लो तो 7-8 नेबर कंट्रीज है, इतने सारे बॉर्डर, अपनी इतनी सारी दिक्कतें. ठीक है, सो अंडरस्टैंड, ये चीज़ है मीर शामिर की. नाउ what will be the agenda for me here when I'm talking about what ought to be? My agenda will be that I want to bring change. See, when I talk about Marx wants to bring about change. What should be the method for him? Revolution. Not just any kind of revolution, a bloody revolution. He is choosing the method of history. He thinks that he is very very scientific, you understand, he's thinking that his method is very very scientific in nature. Now why is that? See, जब प्लेटो told के philosopher king, तो उसकी बात को we neglected. Why? Because it was coming out of pure ought to be. Now Marx know that भैया प्लेटो को ठुकरा दिया तो मैं भी कौन हूँ. See, Marx was not Marx when he was alive. Marx became Marx when he was dead. We talk about Marx when he's dead. So Marx was like कि भाई let's call कि my theories are very very scientific. है कुछ नहीं, वही same. So when I'm talking about empirical or observation, it comes under the ambit of science as well. Scientific theories, empirical theories, and there is an overlap sometimes. This is Marx, Karl Marx. Whereas these sorry, yes, whereas these people, let's say if I call liberals, what will they say? कि अरे भाई सही तो चल रहा है, it is so good, person has liberty, we can get property, everything is so fine. Okay, these are poor, but why should we worry about them? What is their norm? कि देखो state का GDP is this. अरे भैया state की GDP is not giving you the entire picture. Why are you not talking about human development index? You should talk about human development index. So understand what they want to do is कि let me be rich na. 100 billion I have today, let me have 200 billion today. This is working for me, the current system. So I would want to maintain this. I will want to maintain the status quo. So I am status quoist here in empirical. When I'm observing things, I want to maintain. Why I'm observing something? Let's say I'm observing my kid. This is my kid and I am a mother. So I would want to make sure that he stays my kid. Status quo, maintain. I will not want him to get married. Even if he get married, I would want to, let's say, nag him कि भाई tell me also what is going on, tell me also. I want to always maintain him as my kid. But when I am philosophical, ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे everything is about what ought to be. You are a kid today, a man tomorrow. ठीक है, men are people of war, you should be strong willed. ठीक है, I will not always be your mother. ठीक है, I am a राजमाता. कुछ भी हो सकता है यार, it is stupid things. Anyhow, why I told you about Marx and his method of history. He also has observed the current system at his time. He was a child of his time. He observed कि भैया these people are getting poorer and poorer, these are workers, and these are getting richer and richer, they are capitalist. So he was doing what? Observing. He was observing. He had a mix of, he had an insight. He wanted to change. Because he wanted to change, it means that he was giving communism. And when you are talking about communism, understand you are, where are you getting this communism from? From the world of ideas. Who gave this communism first? Plato did. But you have to understand, Plato was negated. Nobody talked about Plato much. We talk about Aristotle, golden mean. So you have empirical as well, and philosophical as well. So understand what Marx way was. He said कि भैया I am scientific. I do not want to fall under the ambit of anyone. So it becomes very necessary for us to distinguish scientific approach from empirical approach. Machiavelli is empirical. He wants to look at the world as it is and he wants to rule the world with the rules that are in the world. Power politics, that's it. If from empirical approach Marx was coming, he would not have given communism. In fact, he would just want कि the workers take control of the mode of productions, and at socialism you end. If you just end at socialism, then you are empirical. Make sense? But this communism, because understand, you are maintaining the status quo. Are you maintaining the status quo? No, you are changing it somehow. So a little bit of communism also, you are saying that state will go away. Too much radical changes you are suggesting. Suggestive. As soon as you become suggestive, you become philosophical also. But there are so many criticism against this philosophical, so you have to make sure कि भाई you give a theory which you can call scientific, and scientific will always give product 2 plus 2. These signs means that product is simple 4. This is your product result. This is not that मेरा ही 4 आ रहा है तुम्हारा भी 4 आएगा. So I have to make up a framework, and that framework I created base superstructure, and with that structure obviously the result will come कि भैया you have to bring change here. It will seem all very scientific. Okay, now you have to understand the continuity. Marx had to first observe, when you are observing the current system, कि भैया ऐसा है, this is a base and this is a superstructure. So what you are doing actually when you are just observing, it is an empirical approach, but you have to make it scientific approach to understand. Empirical is just one step. Empirical approach is prior to scientific approach. Now you include tools. Tools like tools of, let's say if this becomes your first step, then your second step will become verification. You verify that what you have observed holds true in another society or another ambit or another domain or another environment. Then you try to make sure that you know what are the different measurements you can take, whether GDP or let's say the resources divisibility. What did Amartya Sen currently have given? Not Amartya Sen, the other fellow, Human Development Index, but same theories only they were developed at. K, this is the better judge of growth of a society rather than GDP. Then, because it is scientific, you should not be feeling कि नहीं यार, I want to have Earth at the center of the universe, and you are modifying every calculation so that Earth becomes center of the universe. No, you should have no bias. You should not favor anything. Make sense? So be clear of empirical and scientific. Empirical approach is just one of the first step of your scientific approach. But understand that scientific approach you can't use much in political science, because very few areas are there when you can use scientific approach, where you can use these measurements, where you can use verification. What are those? Let's say when you are talking about electoral politics or representation politics, then it makes sense that you talk about what are the demographics of the nation or a state or a area. Then you think about what parties are favored, what approaches should be taken, how to make sure more inclusivity happen. On this, further policies can be directed upon. Okay, so with that said, now conclusion. Okay, before conclusion we have to do what? Criticism of empirical approach. So criticism यही है, there are very few areas where you could apply it, and it is not complete in sense that it is not always nice to maintain status quo. You should always be progressing. ठीक है? If you are just wanting to maintain status quo, understand, if you are at a good place, it does not mean that everybody is at a good place. Many are at worst conditions. So if you maintain status quo, you are maintaining their bad place as well. It is not helpful in any nature. It is not giving anything. If you try to maintain status quo कि चलो BJP ही रहेगी, then what will you think will happen? Nothing will happen. It will become corrupt. Nobody will give a damn about what they do or they do not. It is necessary कि sometimes BJP, sometimes Congress, sometimes कोई coalition आ जाए, sometime फिर I will come, ठीक है, then you will come, then sometime we all will come. थोड़ा करते रहो change. Make sense. Let's conclusion same. Politics is very very complex. ठीक है. Choose the approach with the objective of the research. Then we can talk about modern approaches. Now, obviously, your modern approaches is nothing but scientific. Understand, Karl Marx was not completely scientific. He self-declared. उसने तो self declare किया था कि my method is scientific in nature, so that he could have more weight. क्योंकि उसको कंपेयर नहीं होना था कि भाई कहीं प्लेटो की तरह मेरा भी कम्युनिज्म प्लेटो की फील्ड में लगा दे. ठीक है. So we will not talk about Marx. What I want you to understand from scientific, from modern approach is USA, and I am talking about after World War in fact two. So obviously Cold War के time पे it will get developed, and you can think about it like this: modern, scientific, and behavioral. They are all same, no difference. ठीक है. Names are different because better to confuse. डायरेक्टली समझा दोगे तो फिर what is the need of any political scientist? So behavior, as I told you, nothing but you are just trying to understand behavior. Behave, how does society behave, how does person behave. That will require some measurements technique. You will need to quantify things. You will need to take samples sometimes. You need to understand the demand and aspirations of the people to form a good policy. Make sense? What is the objective of a political scientist? Who uses these approaches? Political scientists. So I'm talking from the perspective of political scientist. And when I'm talking about political science, we have to understand when we talk about modern or USA, our agenda is to make it pure science. कि अभी तक too much कभी art कभी science, make it pure science. Now how do I make something pure science? Until now the core idea in the political science was state. Now let's make the core idea science. And when I talk about science, I need to change everything. I can't just say that bhai I am thinking कि ये होना चाहिए वो होना चाहिए. I need to give evidence. Then I need to show verifiability. I need to verify it. So World War II, let's say कि 1950s में it is emerging. And why it is emerging? Understand, new states are forming. New states are forming. United Nations, lot of conferences are going on. Lot of conferences, and every big scholars and scientists are called upon, except few. And one of those were political scientists. So economists are being called upon, diplomats are being called, bankers are being called, but not political scientists. And why does that happen? And what was the conferences for? Conferences for bhaiya, the reconstruction and redevelopment of Europe. We have to reconstruct the whole world. After the war, it is in turmoil. Turmoil में है, reconstruct करना है. But we are not calling political scientists. Why? Because understand, USA is in command, and USA know कि भैया their approaches are very philosophical, or let's say empirical. That is, in easiest word, they have no relevance. They have nothing to offer. What can they offer? बक बक करते हैं बस कि what ought to be. Nothing there. So If political scientists are not coming, it means that political science itself becomes a dead discipline, dead field. Because, see, you were there, political scientists, throughout history, and yet world wars happened. So it is one thing is clear कि भैया तुम whatever you say कि this should be there or this should be there or we should create some structure like this, everything is stupid. Nothing works. And why is this? From US's perspective, one thing कि भैया you are always talk shop, बक बक करते हो, that's it. You have no evidence, you have no practical relevance. You are all about theory, you have no practical relevance. And when you have no practical relevance, understand the world is the real. World is a real place. And here theory and its implementation is practice. There is a difference between the two. You always talk about this, you never talk about this. And there is a difference between the two. Hence, I need something that is very coherent. I need tools which are very much same everywhere. यहाँ पे यू आर सेइंग जस्टिस ऐसी होनी चाहिए, अरे भैया इंडिया में ले आओ तुम्हारा जस्टिस, यहाँ पे काऊ के ऊपर मारेंगे तुम्हें, ठीक है? तो तुम बोलोगे फिर क्या, बोले ये कैसा जस्टिस है? तो भैया ये हमारा हिंदू जस्टिस। ठीक है? सो ठीक है, ये अजान पढ़ रहे हैं यहाँ पे, अल्लाह अकबर, यहाँ थप्पड़ पढ़ रहे हैं बिना बात के लोगों को, सोनू निगम मार रहे हैं और कुछ नहीं, तो कुछ है नहीं यहाँ पे जस्टिस वस्टिस। We need something that is coherent and same. What kind of approach we can use? So understand, we will have to come towards maths, we will have to come towards statistics, we have to quantify it. This is our behavioral approach. Behavior समझेंगे हम लोगों का, behavioral approaches. We will try to understand the process, we will try to understand the process. Earlier what we were doing, we were just trying to study the institution of, let's say, caste, institution of, let's say, marriage, institution of, let's say, Hindu laws. Let's try to understand process. Why is it there? How did caste become dominant from Varna to caste? How is it practical in today's form? Is it practical? Is it necessary? What should be the use of it? If there is a use, then let's replace that use. Then there will be no need of this caste system. As simple as that. So we have to have a structure. We need to find a issue. We need to decode it, dismantle it, open it, and then we find solution to it. And we test it on samples. And when we see कि भैया this wala is working, this approach is working, let's say this did not work, this approach work, then let's implement it on a bigger scale, worldwide. Abhi NRC, let's say you implemented in Assam, you know what are the issues with it. So you know a lot of varieties of issues. It is good thing if you are implementing all over India, then you are better suitable now. ठीक है, but then again you are better suitable for demonetization also, क्योंकि काफ़ी कुछ तो उसमें भी सीख गए. So never mind. So you understand. And who will be directing this behavioral approach? Who will be, let's say, the guiding institution? So it will be your APSA, American Political Science Association. ठीक है? What will their agenda be? To make political science pure science. So obviously, as I told you before, understand this thing. What would be my approach now from for making anything pure science? Let's say I have to create a law. So what will I do? How will I create? So my first step will be I will observe. Obviously, empirical. Observe. Now what am I observing? I am observing a phenomena. Let's say lynching पे अगर मेरे को law लाना है, I have to control lynching. So what will I do? First I will observe the phenomena. So I am observing कि lynching is occurring. ठीक है. Now understand, why am I calling lynching a phenomena? Because phenomena has inherent qualities in it. First thing is, a phenomena is regular. Regularity, there is some kind of regularity in it. So let's say every 2 weeks you are hearing about lynching, there is some kind of regularity in it. Can you call attacks on suicide attacks suicide attacks by Al Qaeda on USA a phenomena? No, it is just an event. One time event, once it happened, that's it. It is not like every 2 weeks you are seeing that भैया ये हो रहा है यूएसए में, एयरप्लेन जा रहे हैं. No, right? So there is no regularity. It is not a phenomena. It is an event. So for event, dealing with event, there is another kind of policy, another kind of approach. You understand what is the issue. It is one time event, so there will be a one time solution or two time solution. If there are multiple decisions, then it becomes a policy. So there is a policy of no negotiation with terrorist. Okay. When single solution you have, then it becomes a decision. But multiple decision, it becomes a policy. Similarly, phenomena has need to have regularity. Think about lynching. Now what do I need to have? I will try to first explain कि why are so much lynching happening. Then I will try to verify. Let's say okay, I have understood this many lynching process, this many I have not. So from these many lynching incident 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14, I have come up with an explanation. Let's try to use this explanation and put it over incidences here. Let's take this. Is my explanation making sense to this event? Event is once. This lynching event, particular lynching event, is my explanation making sense? It turns out it is getting verified. My explanation has been verified now. Now I need to experiment. Let's try to decrease the number of frequency of these lynching. Let's say sometime people say कि भाई cows are getting kidnapped. Sometimes people get lynched over issues of child abduction, or let's say WhatsApp messages. So let's try to experiment. Let's try to make sure कि भाई WhatsApp do not allow more than 15 forward messages. Let's help creating POXO law more strict. Let's create fear. Let's make sure कि police is at work, at patrol all the time. There is a police chowki nearby, near every village. Let's now think कि is the phenomena decreasing or not. If it shows any result, let's try to create more further laws over it. It makes sense. This is structure, proper structure I am using. Explaining, checking over another sample set, verifying it, then experimenting it. It makes sense. And understand, do I have any political motive for this? No. So I have no bias. No political motive I have. With that said, understand regularity for phenomena. It makes sense क्योंकि भाई no, there is no guarantee के same thing will happen at the same time next time. So that is why you need to see regularity so that you can predict the actions more easily. ठीक है. Kejriwal gets slapped. Now, the first time he got slapped, I thought it was an event because there is no guarantee कि भैया same person will get slapped again. ठीक है, in the same circumstances. What were the circumstances? Elections. But then it happened second time also, and then it happened third time also. So now by this time it is a phenomena. ठीक है, now it is a phenomena. Now I know कि भाई this happens, elections will come, Kejriwal will get slapped, or at least चप्पल तो आएगी एक. Now it is a phenomena. Now I can give an explanation कि why does this happen. So explanation कि भैया he does it himself. Now why would he do it himself? क्योंकि भाई फन आता है उसे. ठीक है, कुछ भी करते हैं लोग. Second is that भाई there is a grievance among people, or let's say BJP backed people do this for money. Makes sense. But then again, why are they doing it? It is making Kejriwal more famous. So it makes no sense. This makes more sense. So what should be the solution? What should be the solution? That whenever he gets slapped, you do not react much. You do not give it much importance. And let's try to see it next time. Does he get slapped again? If no, then bhaiya, I was right. Systemization, same thing is it. Systematic, step by step procedure you follow. Now, understand when the political scientists who use history, tools of historicism, historical approaches, philosophical approaches, empirical approaches, these we can also call as traditionalist. These are because traditional approaches, obviously empirical Machiavelli 1500 में था वो, 1500s. Philosophical Plato type के लोग 2000 साल, 2k years back. History even Marx lot of time back. Makes sense to call them traditionalist. Now understand, these traditionalists will give the criticism for this scientific approach. Obviously, if name is modern, तो modern का criticism traditionalists will give. Traditionalists, what will they say? That bhaiya steps are not necessary. We talked about systemization. So steps are not necessary. Why? Because it is an analytical process. You call political analyst. You have to analyze. It is not important कि भाई step you have to follow. Sometimes you have to apply logic भाई. केजरीवाल ही मार रहा है खुद को थप्पड़. You have to apply logic. स्टेप के हिसाब से तो यू विल से बीजेपी मार रही है, नहीं नहीं खुद मार रहा. ठीक है. Now understand criticism from the perspective of traditionalist, which is obviously they will say कि भाई you are using mathematics and you are using statistics. So obviously understand one thing, there are very limited areas where you can apply these techniques, these quantitative techniques. And why you are using these techniques? Just for the sake of techniques, कि लगानी है तो इसलिए टेक्निक चाहिए तो इसलिए टेक्निक दे दी हमने. Nothing else. In result, what happens is that you are compromising the subject matter. You are compromising subject matter. So understand, how can you apply statistics and mathematics in Kejriwal's slap incidents? You can't. It makes no sense. So sometimes you are degrading the subject matter, or you can say that if this is the spectrum of political science, then only in these areas you can apply mathematics. Let's say electoral politics. vote bank politics. Where else can you apply? So are you saying that this space you will just keep empty? It makes no sense. Similarly similarly the scope of the subject you are limiting, you can say here. Similarly, when I'm talking about verification, that you verify your explanation, understand what traditionalists will say. Traditionalists will say that communism is an important idea for any political student, even you. But do you see communism anywhere? No. So how come we are studying it? What is the need of studying it? We have studied philosopher king also. Do you see philosopher king in real life? No. So you cannot verify philosopher king, you cannot verify communism. Understand, USSR ko communism was not actual communism. It was just a party dictatorship. So you have to apply logical analysis here and think about it, read about it, learn about it. As simple as that. Then you understand, traditionalists also say that political science is a interdisciplinary subject. Interdisciplinary subject means that sometimes, see, even if Machiavelli, you think about it, he is using historical approach as well as empirical approach. So sometimes many approaches you can use. It should not be कि भाई only one scientific approach we will use, because with that approach, if you are using just one approach, you are limiting the scope, limiting the scope of the subject. This is not needed. Okay. Now, obviously, behavioralist, traditionalist, behavioralist are anti. They do not want to use methods of philosophy. They do not want to use the methods of history. They do not want to use the method of legal institutional methods, law. ठीक है? They do not want these. Make sense? Whereas, what do they actually want to use? They want to use the methods of, let's say, even if they say कि चलो let's become interdisciplinary, so at the most they will do what? They will start taking from natural sciences, obviously maths, statistics. Then they will take some from psychology, because the name itself says behavior. Who study about behavior? Psychologists. So psychology. And obviously behavior of society, psychology of society is sociology. How does society work? So interdisciplinary both are, but they just want more interdisciplinary. Then okay यार थक गए अब. So let's do it later. So bye bye.